Hello! Today we are here to discuss Reef Project. This
Right.
was from Board and Dice Games. It was a pickup for Gen Con. It was actually one of the companies that did pre-orders, so I paid before I went and picked it up at the booth. You know, easy peasy, no problem whatsoever. I love when the vendors do that.
It is really nice.
So before we get any further into discussing this, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down there because you don't want to miss out on a single moment of this. You know, you won't. You want to check to see how big the beard's got.
That's right.
Looks like you've trimmed it a little.
Yeah, I have. I keep it trimmed.
So Rob, what can you tell us about this game?
So this is a 2024 release, as Randy said. Now the overall rank was a little high. It's 10,658, but I guess that kind of makes sense since it's brand new. But it's highly rated at 8.2. Plays 1 to 4 people in 45 to 90 minutes, ages 14 and up. I think that's pretty accurate. There's a little bit of meat to the game. Now, the obligatory apologies for pronunciation of these names. These are tough for me, so I apologize. Designed by Martino Chiera and Federico Piero Lorenzi. Sorry. Art by Zuzana Kolakowski and Peter Sokolowski. Now, published, like Randy said, by Board and Dice. MSRP is $50. Now, the cheapest I could find it was at Miniature Market, which is $40, but it was out of stock. But I found one at Card House for $44.99 and Gamers Guild AZ $42.99.
All right. So this is a game where you're going to be playing, basically taking actions of either moving your ship around the board and exploring and taking the actions of the different islands you go to, or you're going to be spending your turn to basically reset, if you will, and you'll get a bunch of perks depending on where your score marker is. It's an interesting mechanic. I've not seen it tied to your score.
And I liked it too.
Yeah,
it was neat.
I thought that was interesting. So as far as the quality of components, it's got some stuff that's kind of nice, and it's got some stuff that's kind of garbage. The board is a pretty nice board. It's got a linen finish, and there's actually two boards. There's one that's actually a standard, square board, and then there's a puzzle board where there's two to go back together, kind of like a puzzle.
And it's only, the main one's only bifold, so it didn't bow that much.
Yeah, I almost wish they made it a trifold and just put that on the other piece, because it doesn't change.
No, but I'm just saying, usually your trifolds start bowing.
Maybe that's why they did it. I don't know. It's kind of odd that they're detached, because it's almost the same width. It's like an inch narrower, and it's not like you're putting in replacement depending on player counts.
Yeah, there's no dual layers or anything.
And as far as player counts, that's where I have the biggest problem. If you're playing a 4-player or a 3-player board, they have a little add-on for 3-player that just lays on, but it's curled. It's just a piece of paper. It's a very thin piece of paper. It's not good at all. That's the biggest beef I have with the whole game, actually, is that card being as thin as it is, and there's one for there and one for the upper corner, and they're tiny. It's tiny, so it doesn't work great. But
you got some wooden, I guess we've been calling them pots.
Well, they're supposed to be like the tops of the balls that they put when they're doing the barriers, in the ocean. The flotation devices, or whatever,
buoys or something.
Yeah, and then you've got, apparently the starfish are just ginormous compared to those. I
don't think it's a realistic representation of a comparison. But they're compared to everything else, they're pretty big.
Yeah. And you've got a bunch of cardboard. There's cardboard tiles everywhere.
Yeah, but this is a pretty good thickness, and it feels like there's a linen finish to it. So that's pretty nice.
Some of which look like bags of churros.
They do, or French fries, or taquitos.
Yeah, I guess this one looks more like the French fries, and then this one looks like those taquitos. The ones
taquitos.
With the beef in the middle, and it's like the hard tortilla shell.
Yep.
So
they look quite tasty.
Not that one so much.
That kind of looks like hairy worms.
No. There's
a lot of cardboard. It's mostly cardboard.
The cards have a nice card stock. They have a linen finish.
They're pretty good thickness.
Yeah, they're good standard cards.
And I like the player boards. I think that's probably the best part of the game.
You have to do some assembly.
You do have to do some assembly, but they're also modifiable because you can lift it up
Yeah.
and your player sheet can change.
Exactly.
So that part's pretty cool, and I like that.
Yeah.
So,
On those, actually, I think it's more just punching. The game we played earlier had the assembly.
yeah. So, but I did like that aspect of it.
Yeah. So, given, there's nothing outstanding about the game from a quality perspective. Oh, and there was stickering, which also takes off.
Yeah, that takes off for you.
So, I'm going to go ahead and just give this one, I think, a 7.5. I'll give it a 7.5 because there are all the wooden bits, but you did have to put stickers on all the circles, which I did not like. And the cardboard and cards are good, except for this. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah. I think I'm a little bit higher because I really do like the individual player boards. I thought that as far as the cardboard quality is pretty good, other than those two little sheets of paper. So I think I'm an 8.
Okay. So moving on to theme. So the theme is we're cleaning up the oceans. We're going through and removing
these
pollution.
oceans are filthy.
Yes.
Just let me tell you.
So we're sending our pollution-making steamships or whatever they are across the ocean.
They kind of look like yachts.
I know.
They look like really nice boats.
Yeah, these are definitely not what you would typically expect.
Yeah, these look way nicer than skimming the oceans.
They're dumping their oil and sewage as they travel down, cleaning up the oceans.
So, but thematically, that's what we're doing. We're cleaning the ocean and trying to rebuild the reef.
Yes. And apparently these buoys that we're placing everywhere are not going to be obstacles or hazards to any of our boats.
Nobody cares.
Nobody
They're
cares.
fine.
And they're not polluting the oceans.
The fish are fine with it. So they're okay.
Until they clunk their head into it.
The sharks are really liking them because that's what we got mostly of, starfish and sharks.
Yes. Well, the starfish are just there as placeholders when you're scoring.
True, but still.
The sharks are kind of printed there permanently, so... but that's the concept of the game. The art is pretty. It's very colorful.
I think the art's very nice.
Very much like a coral reef you would expect. And it's a lot of iconography.
Yeah, and I think the actions kind of fit the theme too.
Yeah.
So, it just doesn't feel 100% layered on. Now, there's actually some theme and that makes sense mechanically what you're doing. So that's really nice as well.
I don't understand this lone diver down here either. If this is all polluted water,
it's
what's he
multiple
doing?
divers. They just dress the same.
Okay.
So.
Even this one lone diver at the bottom of the ocean, he's going to be like never coming up. So I don't think
he gets a lot of perks for doing it. And
yeah. So I don't know. That part didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I guess, he's in the ocean. It makes sense. But why he's going down there, I don't get it.
He's checking out the different reefs.
Okay. So inspecting them to see if we're cleaning them.
Either that or looking for food.
Okay. So
they look like fries.
Apparently he's left tanks down here and he's picking them up along the way. So I guess he won't run out of oxygen.
That's
right. It's very much like the For Your Eyes Only movie, I guess, where going obscure references where she leaves the tank down there and they conveniently land. They conveniently get attacked and they find that they're right above where she left the tank in the ocean.
It was very nice.
Yes. All right. So thematically, because it is colorful and it does fit the gameplay a bit, and I like the subject matter. I love fish and the aquatic life. I'll probably go ahead and give this thematically a 7.5 as well.
I think thematically, I think it's much better now. I was going to 8.5 maybe, but I think more of an 8 because even though the mechanics fit the theme, they're not like crazy cool or anything like that. Yeah. So I think I'm an 8.
All right. So moving on to rulebook. So there's actually 2 rulebooks in the game. One is for regular play and one is for solo play. Now, this game is designed really as a 4-player game. You can play it 2 or 3-player. There is adjustments you have to make for 3-player, and for 2-player you have to put kind of a bogus player into it.
Yeah. I think I played good at 3, though.
Yeah.
I think I played well. Other than the crappy add-ons that you had to do for the board, I think I played well at 3.
Yeah, I did. The rule book itself is 16 pages in length. It's got a nice cover, matches the box, so does the solo play one. The solo play game rule book is a lot thinner, but it's actually still pretty meaty. It's an 8-page rule book. Granted, there's a cover on the back.
That's very nice.
So yeah, it's still pretty meaty for a solo
play
game.
book.
As far as the contents, it's got nice color pictures of all of the pieces. And then the setup is broken into a setup for the main board and a setup for the player boards. Now, there was some referencing, cross-referencing between the two because they're on two separate pages, but yet the numbering still refers back to the previous, so you'll be flipping back and forth as you're setting it up. This does take a little time to set up because there's just a lot of bits to the game. Then what's odd about it is how they decided to teach this game. So normally you would go into, it says game overview and key concepts. But the key concepts take longer to read than the actual gameplay of the rulebook. So the key concepts kind of explain all the different various icons you see, but it doesn't have the picture of the icon. It just tells you, like, if you do this, this is how you do that step. I guess they have tiny picture of this, like here's research track, and it's got a picture of the microscope in the text that's tiny, whereas they don't have anything at the header. And then it goes after, but that takes from page 7 to page 10. So that's, through that is all about all the different steps that can happen. Then you go into how you actually take your turn. And that only takes 2 pages. so it seems odd, you would think that would come first, and then as you're going through the steps, you would reference, and then there would be iconography would be at the end. Now there is iconography cheat sheet at the end, and that was very helpful. They had a little card for a cheat sheet, which was also helpful, but it was missing all the icons that are referenced in the book. So there was a lot of going back to the book.
Right.
To check for things. But, it is a pretty, once you get past all the different actions that are icon referenced, the gameplay itself is really easy. You have 2 choices.
Yeah, it wasn't difficult. I mean, although I didn't read the rule book, but Randy didn't think this was a big deal. I was a little perturbed by the issue, though. So one of the rules is on movement, which we'll go in more detail, but the cheat sheet doesn't match the rule book.
I think it does. This is where I think you and I dispute.
Even Adam agreed with me.
Yeah, well, he said he could see the confusion because what the header for the action is details a little bit of the action, whereas like if it was just to say like move, attack, a key word, you wouldn't interpret it more of it. But they actually spell out kind of more of a detail of the particular action involved, and then you have the bullet points that kind of step you through that action. Whereas you were interpreting it as the header was part of the detail, so you could basically do it in a different order.
Well, no, I didn't think about it as a different order. It literally to me, it says do this, and then when you do this, then do these things. Right,
but those sub things are the things that you do. The top one is just the header.
And it made sense to you, didn't make sense to me. I didn't like it, and I thought that I didn't care for it. So
he won, so I have no sympathy. So anyway, the last section is just basically the scoring of the game, and then the iconography, which is the only thing that's
and we had some hard time finding specific examples of stuff too. So it was a little confusing at different points.
And you're going through the whole time, and there's no purple; it's all blue, aqua, which is fine because it makes sense it's aqua because you're in the water, but then it jumps to pink and blue, purple for this.
Right.
I like the differentiation, I guess, but I don't understand why within the same page it's pink and purple. And then you've got back to pink again, so it's just kind of distracting.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad rule book. It's
it just could have been better.
It could have been better. I'm going to give it a 7.5. That seems to be my consistent scoring.
And that's fine with me, but I think the cheat sheet sucked.
Well, I think the cheat sheet should have had all the iconography. Yeah. They could have made that a bigger card and put the iconography on there. And I think if they had turned it into a true header and not detailed more of the action on the header, it would have probably caused less confusion for you.
For me, yeah. So
all right,
there you go.
So moving on to gameplay. So at the beginning of this game, you're going to have a board, and all these buoys or flotation balls, whatever, are not going to be on the board. It's going to be empty.
Yeah.
So you would have them taking up space on your resource tracks. You have 3 main resources, which is kelp and shells and cameras, really.
Right.
The idea is that while you're out here, you're taking pictures and documenting your steps. So that is how you generate money, by showing people all the pollution.
Sure.
Apparently, they like to watch pollution. And the kelp is somehow converted into energy, because apparently our ships run on clean energy of burning kelp somehow.
I don't know. It kind of makes sense, because I think that kelp, can be burned and then utilized for energy sources. So.
But that's still polluting.
I don't know. Depends how you burn it, I guess.
Yeah. And then the shells, I'm not sure what the shells...
I think it looks like a clam. So it's either shells
pearls?
or they're eating them. Maybe it's for food. I don't know. But
Shells are used in the creation of the reef balls. Now, you explain that one to me.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to stitch them together airtight, fill them with air, and put them back in. Shells. Okay. That doesn't make much sense. So those are the resources that are on tracks. Beyond that, you have an energy meter,
which is a separate track.
That's a separate track that's really used for moving your ship around,
right.
And it's the one we had the most trouble with when we were playing the game, because we were always draining it, and it's not as easy.
It's a limited resource for sure.
Well, all of them are. And then the other one would be money, which they have cardboard coin for, which I don't like, so we used our poker chip money.
Right.
So basically, on your turn, you've got to decide: are you going to do a move action, or are you going to do a what do you call it's not rejuvenate? It was recharge.
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 Action. And the recharge action simply is, I'm going to basically see where I am on the score track, and there's points of where there's anchors along the way. And every one of those anchors gives you a special ability, and they get more powerful the further you are on the scoring track.
But it's very important to do them basically wherever you're at, closest one backwards.
Yes, you're going to go. You have to do that.
You have to do it that way, and it makes sense when you're playing the game.
Yeah. So you're going to trigger all the different actions that you can from where you are on the score track back to the beginning, and the very beginning one gives you 3 energy. So you're minimum going to get some energy.
Mm-hmm. And it also helps you get rid of these tiles we'll talk about.
Yeah. So you're going to then, beyond that, you're going to move your ship. Well, first thing, you can drop one of your buoys or
you start with
floating
5.
balls. You have 5 in your reserve, and then the other ones are taking up space on your track, so you have to unlock them in order to put them into your reserve so you can play them.
Right.
And then you're going to decide if you want to play them. If so, you have to pay the number of empty energy spaces, if you don't have one already there, on a path, and you drop it there, and then from that point on, you can pass through that path without paying any energy whatsoever.
That's the part thematically that makes no sense to me. Like, all of a sudden, just because I have this flotation device sitting out in the middle of the ocean, free gas. I mean, it's just, it powers everything. Woo, that's amazing. Like, where's this technology at?
It's a runway. It shows you where you're supposed to go. So it lights up, and you're like, oh, okay. So, yeah, so it basically, why I have no idea, but it somehow magically lets your ship move down that path. And, again, it's you're stretching your reality here
a little bit
to make it happen, but it's still fun. So you're going to drop one of these buoys off if you want to. That's an optional action. Moving is a required action.
Yes.
So you cannot stay where you are once you take this action. You have to move. And you can move as far as you can pay energy. So you don't have to stop at the next island. You can keep moving.
As long as you got the energy.
You can pay the energy. You just can't drop any more buoys off. You can't. So you only have to pay the energy that is exposed on the board. So if somebody else has filled a path up with those buoys, if you will, you can just go straight through. You don't have to pay for it. Doesn't matter if you own them or they own them. It doesn't. That has no bearing. Much like the Bering Sea. So you go to an island location, and on the island location, it has different actions. And this is where all that iconography comes in that was referenced up front in the rule book.
And there's a ton of it.
There's different actions. Now, they did do a nice job on the cheat sheet of detailing all the main actions
Right. Yes, they did do
on
that.
the islands. So you can go there, and it'll tell you in a brief sentence what it does. If you need any more detail, there's a section in the rulebook that you can find. Obviously, it's 2/3 of the rulebook, and it'll tell you how to treat that action. And sequencing is important.
It is important.
There's a lot of things where you have to do them A versus B.
Or you wouldn't be able to do B and C if you didn't do A first.
Yeah,
I mean, I know that kind of makes sense, but when you look at the tile, it doesn't say do this, 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 but you can do it in the order you want, and if you do it that way, then things open up for you.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it in the right order, you're screwed in the water.
Right.
Literally.
Additionally, after you're moving, you have the option of playing a card. So there's cards that you will gather at the beginning. You draft for 2 at the start of the game, but you can collect more of them. They have
a little icon at the bottom of the island, and in all of our, well, not all, but most of the islands also have similar icons.
Yeah.
So if you have that matching icon in your hand, then you get to play that card.
And they did a nice job labeling all the islands with different sea
and they're
animals.
different shapes too, so color blindness shouldn't be an issue in that regard.
So you then have to decide. There's 2 types of cards, 3 really, but 2 that are there's the island ones, and there's ones that are just conditional. So they don't have islands; they have a picture of a boat. But if you meet the criteria of it, you can cash it in without having to go to a specific location. So the island ones, you have to go to the location that's pictured on the island. In some cases, there's an X across it. In those cases, you don't get the action of the island.
You Similar to this, so it covers up the icons on the island, but you get this perk on the bottom.
Right, and it's usually more powerful than the island actions. The other type has the island, and then you take the action there on the island and get the action at the bottom of the card.
And it's nice, but it's not as powerful as, let's say, the other ones that we were talking about.
But they come in 3 suits, which is basically purple, green, and orange, or triangle, square, and whatever the heck that other shape is. It's like a 5-sided diamond or something.
Yeah, something like that.
So if you collect one of each of those, you get 4 victory points immediately upon completing the set once you've played them. So you have to complete the mission. They call them mission cards. You have to complete the mission. You put it in front of you, and it stays in front of you for the rest of the game, because when you get all 3 of them, you'll get the set and you get 4 points. But at the end of the game, you'll get 1 point for every card you've played throughout the entire game.
They can be worth quite a few points if you do it right.
Right. So, and that's how I got most of my points, was gathering up, collecting those sets and completing them. Then, after you've done that, if you can trigger the island if you haven't already done so as part of that card condition. The islands will have various actions which will let you build up workers on your ship. That's one thing you can do. You can basically improve your engine.
It'll take these little buoys or whatever they are off of your board and put them in reserve.
Right.
You can increase your resources. Yeah, that's really about it. You got research.
Yeah, you get bonuses for completing rows as long as the colors match the board. So that's the one area I can see where color blindness may come into factor. Now, they do have pictures of workers that are different on each row based on the color, so you could probably still tell, but it would be a little more difficult. But basically, if you complete a row, you get victory point bonus. If you complete a column, you get to trigger one of those workers in that column. And every one of the spaces, when you place the worker, it's going to cover up some kind of icon, and you will get that bonus at the time you cover it. So there's a lot of perks from building up your board. There's a lot of things to do in this that you can do, but you aren't going to have time to do everything.
Right. I didn't even come close to completing my board. I did 1 row. That's all I got.
Yeah, I didn't come close.
You did a column.
I got a column, yeah.
Yeah, and I got a row. And I don't think Adam did a column or a row.
No, he did have a column.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So that's the gist of the game. What's interesting about this is it doesn't have a set number of turns. So
Yeah, it's based off a score.
right, the game ends when somebody reaches 45 points.
And there's a halfway mark, and that part was a little interesting because there's special cards you look through, and whoever's the furthest back in the points get to look through those first and say, all right, this is basically in-game scoring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I get my pick, and I was the one to do that, so that helped me out quite a bit actually. Got me a bunch of points. And then second furthest back, and then Randy would then select which cards they wanted. So I like that part of it too.
Yeah, I did like that, and but they limit you on in-game bonuses on this because that is really the in-game bonus. Now if you have extra resources or money, you can convert money into resources, and if you have a full set of all three of the main resources, it's worth 3 points. So you can build up. So
potentially you could build up 15 points if you had everything maxed out at the end of the game.
Adam managed to get 12 out of it.
Yeah, so you got quite a bit.
Yeah, it seemed like everything I thought I was doing well, he outscored me in every one of those categories. But yet the scores were still close.
Yeah, they were all very close to each other. I only won by 2.
Yeah. I mean, I was the one that triggered the end of the game because I was way up in the score most of the game.
Yeah,
I was dominating
when he got to the end game, I was like at least 20 points behind him, and so but that end game scoring, which amounted to a lot of points.
Yeah, but I mean, you and I got the same point.
I don't mean this, but all the board scoring that we did, it ended up a lot of the in-game scoring. It really racked up to be quite a few points.
The buoys, not only do they're very important in this game.
They really are.
Not only do they trigger letting you move through spaces for free, but they trigger based upon completion of having one on each path, no matter whose they are.
So think of it as a circle, even though it's not shaped like a circle.
Or a square.
But think of it as a circle or something that circles around the shark token. And then once we get one in each of those sections that comes off, whoever has the most gets the token. And I think that's where I won the game.
Yeah,
because I had a lot of them. And so you have these really big ones that are worth the most, and you have a medium size and then a smaller circle. Mm-hmm. And so I accumulated quite a few of those.
Yeah, and you can either use those tokens once per turn, or you can keep them until the end of the game for victory points.
Yeah, and they all have really nice abilities on them, so it was hard to not use them. Yeah. But I was able to, and I scored like almost 20 points in just those.
In addition to that, each one of those, at the end of the game, when you've exposed it, there's sharks that are worth points. 2 points for shark for the first place, 1 point per shark for the second place, and it can get you 6 points max. But it's still a nice bonus if you've got it's kind of an area control at the end of the game. So
I really like the diver technique. So we really didn't go into that. Randy did talk about how it's a track that you go up, but what's interesting about it is these tanks. And the first person to get there, they get the ability, but then they flip the tank over.
And then
it becomes more powerful. Anybody that comes up behind them will get those. So I think that's an interesting mechanic. But I had a really neat ability that allowed me to do both sides.
Yeah.
And that helped me out a lot because I really took advantage of that track. And I maxed it out as quickly as I could and be able to got both sides of those tokens as I progressed. But I did like that mechanic quite a bit.
Yeah. And then similarly, the research track, basically kind of like Ark Nova, if you've played Ark Nova, the middle section where you're choosing your cards, you have to develop your research up, or you can not choose cards except for behind where you are. Plus, that track acts as the tiebreaker in ties. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's furthest up, it can give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the final scoring down here. If there's 2 people that are both tied for first,
for the sharks,
whoever's furthest on the research track gets to break it. Plus, it's worth victory points how far you up at the end of the game. So that pushed Adam up quite a bit. Was that track?
Yeah, there was at least 2 ties that he was able to win because of that.
Yeah, and not to mention the victory points for the track.
Yeah, you got 16 points on it.
Yeah. So, and I think there's a lot of ways to play this and score. I mean, we all had different strategies, and we still were within 10 points of each other at the final score, basically. Right. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting game. As far as my score on this, I think first of all, Board and Dice wins Gen Con in my opinion, as far as the game quality of the games they released that I picked up there. I would say Windmill Valley, which the review should be up by the time you
Excellent
see
game.
this. It was great. And this one I don't like quite as well, but it's right up there. There's just a lot of, it feels a little bit wonky, but there's a lot of moving pieces in this one. I think this has got more, this one may have more staying power than Windmill Valley does for me.
Right, that's true.
But
because there's so many different ways to score.
Yeah.
And so you could do different strategies and see how it works out.
But at least as of now, I think I enjoyed the mechanics and the gear process and the the rondelle system of Windmill Valley more than I enjoy the development of my board, which is interesting because when I was learning Windmill Valley, I went ahead and started punching this one, and I'm like, why am I learning Windmill Valley? I'd rather be playing this one. But I actually turned out I think I like Windmill Valley better.
I think I did too. Windmill Valley's a really good game. I want to have to pick that one up.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to give this one, I think I gave Windmill Valley an 8.5. I may be wrong on that, but I think I'm going to give this one an 8.
I think 8's a good solid score. And it might get a little bit higher with multiple playthroughs. We might be able to see some elements of the game that we didn't really look into that much, and it might make it feel a little bit better. But it's a great game just right out of the box with the initial playthroughs that we've done.
I mean, given the fact that the big three for me are DeVere, Capstone, and Board and Dice.
Yeah.
Every time I go to these games, those are the three I rush to. I haven't tried the Capstone ones yet, so I've still got those games to play. But so far, DeVere's I was a little disappointed in. They weren't bad; they just weren't up to the usual.
It wasn't last
quality.
year's Gen Con.
They weren't up to DeVere's usual quality, at least from a in-depth perspective. They were lighter fare.
Right.
And Reef Project is probably the meatiest one we've played of the bunch. Windmill Valley was the second of all the releases I've picked up so far that we've played. Now we've got some heavier ones that are like the.
We still need to review Slay the Spire and.
Yeah, we got Slay the Spire that we haven't reviewed yet, but we got several other ones that we picked up.
That Eternal Palace looks pretty good too.
Yeah, there's some meatier ones yet to play that are, but those are harder to get to the table. So,
but it was a satisfying game. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy I picked it up. I'm happy about all the ones I picked up from Board and Dice so far. So, good job, Board and Dice, this year. You did an excellent job. So, all right, well, that's our thoughts on Reef Project. So if you got a chance to play it, let us know what you think. I know my sister played it
and she loved
Dice Tower, and she was like, "This is amazing," and messaged me. That was her favorite one she played at the Dice Tower retreat she went to. And I think I can see, she has a little bit different taste than I like, but I still can see where she would have why she liked it as much as she did. I just think Windmill Valley is the better of the two. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you come back again, and hopefully you don't have polluted waters in your way where you live.
That would stink.
Yeah, definitely. That's nice. So, bon voyage, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.